Hi students, welcome back to lecture series on Python. So in our previous class, we have discussed about the first category of control structures, that is about decision control structures, in which we discussed about four categories of decision control structures, starting with the if statement, and then if else, then nested if, and finally we discussed about the elif ladder. Okay, so this class is a continuation to that previous class. Today, we will discuss about the second category of control structures, uh, repetition control structures. Okay, so that is the topic that we are going to discuss today, right? So let us start with the introduction. We know that the decision control structures are useful in controlling the flow of execution of the uh, program. Whereas in loop control statements, these are useful. The main purpose of these loop control statements is to execute a particular block of statements repeatedly, okay, repeatedly for several times until a particular condition is met. Okay, so that is what you need to understand. The first point that should come into your mind when you hear this loop control statements is these are used for executing a group of statements repeatedly for several times until a particular condition is met. Okay, so this is the point you need to understand. And there are two types of loop control statements available in Python. One is while loop, and the other one is for loop. Okay, we don't have do while here as we have it in C language. We just have only two types, while loop and for loop. Of course, for loop can be used with different options, different syntaxes. I will explain it later. Okay, let us start with the while loop first, then we will understand how for loop can be used in Python. Okay, right. So we'll begin with the while loop. This is for executing a particular group of statements several times repeatedly until a particular condition is false, becomes false. Okay, so if you look into the syntax, it is same as the C program syntax. While the command is while, it is same as C language, followed by a condition is tested. Okay, so if this condition is true, then the control goes inside that particular block of statements. Okay, executes all the statements inside the block. Okay, and performs a proper incrementation or decrement operation inside the block itself. Once the entire block is executed, then it again goes back to the condition testing. Okay, so look into this arrows. It shows the flow of execution of the statements. First, the condition is evaluated. If the condition is true, then the control goes inside the block and executes all the statements inside the block. Okay, and then it goes back to the condition testing again. So this process, testing the condition going inside the block, is repeated until the condition under focus becomes false. So whenever this condition becomes false, then it immediately goes out of the while block and continues with the remaining statements of your program. Okay, so how many times this loop gets executed depends on this condition we are testing. So this block of statements are executed until this condition becomes false. Okay, so whenever this condition is true, it goes inside and executes the statements inside the block. That is how it works. The concept is same, technically same in every language. Here also the purpose is same. There is nothing new in this. Okay. Now let us have a look at the flow chart to understand the working of while loop very clearly. So while loop begins with a condition testing. Okay, the condition is tested. If the condition is true, it goes inside the okay the block of statements that are for execution. And after executing this block of statements, look at this, it goes back to the condition testing again. Okay, again the condition is tested. And if it is true, it comes over here again, executes the statements and goes back. This is repeated until this condition is false. Whenever the condition becomes false, then it goes out of the while loop, okay, and continues with the execution of remaining statements, whatever are present after while loop, right? So this is how the while loop works. Okay, now have a look at this example in which we are initializing a variable number is equals to 5. So is equals to 5 indicates that it is initialized, let us say it is n, the number gets a value 5 at the beginning. Okay, it is 5. And then sum is 0. And I is 0 at the beginning. Now, the condition is while I less than number, what is the value of I at this time? It is 0. So 0 less than, the number is 5. 0 less than 5, it is testing. Okay, the condition is obviously true. 0 is less than 5. Therefore, it goes inside the loop, that is, it comes over here, executes the statement. Sum is equals to sum plus 5. That means 0 plus I is also 0. So again, sum is 0. There is no change in the value of sum because 0 plus 0 is going to be 0 again. The value of sum is 0. Still it is 0. Then I is equals to I plus 1. That means I is incremented by 1. Now the value of I is 1. Okay. And because these two statements forms the block of while loop, why? How do you identify that these two statements forms the block? Because after writing this while statement, these two are indented properly, that forms the block of while. Therefore, these two statements are executed and then the control goes back to the condition testing again. Okay. Now the updated value of I is 1. Okay. So now it is 1 less than 5 is the condition. 1 less than 5. Yes, it is true. So it comes inside. Sum is equal to sum plus I. This time I value is 1. So 0 plus 1 is updated here. So sum becomes 1 now. I is equal to I plus 1. Therefore, I value is updated to 2. Now I is 2. Again, it goes back to condition testing. Now the value of I is 2. Okay. 2 less than 5 is again true. So it goes inside. Sum is equal to sum plus I. That means 1 plus 2. Sum already contains 1. 1 plus 2 is 3. Now sum gets a value 3. Okay, we are adding up the values of sum and I, and the result is stored back to the sum again. That is 3 is stored into sum. I is equal to I plus 1 is the next statement. Now it is 3. I value is 3. The control goes back to the condition testing. Now the value of I is 3. So the condition is tested for 3 less than 5 now. Yes, it is true. 3 less than 5 is true. So it goes inside again. Sum is equal to sum plus I. Sum already contains 3. 3 plus 3. I also contains 3. So 3 plus 3 is 6 now. Okay. So now sum contains 6. I is equal to I plus 1 makes I value 4. Okay. And goes back to the condition testing. Now the value of I is 4. 4 less than 5 is true. Goes inside. Sum is equal to sum plus I. 6 plus 4, it is 10. Now sum is equals to 10. Okay. I is equal to I plus 1. Now I value is 5. Okay. It is 5. Now the condition is tested. 5 less than 5 is wrong. It is equal. Okay. So whenever this condition is false, the control is transferred to the statement which is present immediately after while block. How do you identify the statement after while? They are written at the same indentation. Okay. You can see it here. So it goes to print of sum, which prints the value of sum. What is the value of sum? It is 10. Okay. So the output is 10. So that is how it works, right? So there are few points that you need to remember here. While writing while loop, the condition must be followed by a colon symbol to indicate the start of while block, and all the statements inside the while block must be properly indented like this. Okay, that is what you need to understand. Once the block is completed, the statements after while must be aligned properly with equal indentation of while. Okay, right. So remember these points while writing programs on while loop. We'll see more programs afterwards once we complete this theory part. Okay. The next thing we want to discuss is for loop. The purpose of for loop is also to execute a particular block of statements repeatedly until a particular condition is met. But in Python, the for loop condition is tested differently, not same as the language that you learned in C. Okay, so we'll see what is that difference in a while now. Look at the syntax. It is for is the command, okay, and then we will not give any condition explicitly, but internally condition is tested. But what we specify is we choose a variable. It can be any variable, any name x, y, I, or any name here. It must be a variable. This is another command you need to remember. We know that this in represents the membership operator, right? Okay, so this membership operator is part of for loop to test the condition. We know that membership operators returns either true or false based on whether a particular value is present in the loop or not. But here, this membership operation in takes this variable and points it to the value of this sequence. Okay, it takes one value in the sequence at a time. It will not compare anything, but this takes one value from this sequence. For every value taken from the sequence, the corresponding block of code written inside the for loop gets executed. And whenever it goes out of all the elements in the sequence, then the program execution stops. So how this works is, if sequence, this is a list of elements, if the elements are still there to be processed, then loop continues. If all the elements are processed in the loop, then the loop stops. That is how it works. Okay. Maybe you do not understand this at this level. After looking into some examples, you will definitely understand this. It's a simple looping statement compared to the other languages. Okay. Let us understand it more clearly with the help of this flow chart. Okay, initially a condition is tested. The condition is not mentioned explicitly. It is always going to test whether it is the last item in the sequence or not. If the last item in the sequence is processed, then the condition becomes false. Okay, right? So if the condition is, if the last item in the sequence is processed, if it is true, then it means the entire sequence of items is completed, then loop stops. Otherwise, if it is not the last item, then there are more elements to process. So it picks the next element and continues with the execution of your for loop. So there is a contradiction here when compared with other loops. If last item is processed, okay, if it is true, then go out of the for loop. That means the condition is true, means you go out of the for loop. Otherwise, if the condition is false, then continue the loop. This is a contradiction to your while loop, where in while loop, we continue with the block if the condition is true. We go out of the block if the condition is false, right? So here it is a contradiction. You need to understand it clearly, because the condition is different here. It is testing whether it is processed the last item in the sequence or not. If the condition is true, means it is true, it goes out of the loop. Whenever it identifies that all the elements in the sequence are processed, it goes out of the loop. You can remember like that. Okay. Okay, let us move on to a simple example to understand it more clearly. So I've given a list of elements. Of course, we did not know what is a list till now. It will be understood in the next unit. But as of now, to understand that sequence, to understand the working of for loop, just imagine that it is going to create a list of elements in memory. So three elements were created with indexes 0, 1, and 2. Okay. The first element of the list is Python. It is a string. So it gets the string over here. And the second one is Java. And the third string is Ruby, the scripting language. So three languages it is giving. It is creating a list of elements. So imagine like that. Index is 0, 1, and 2. So do not worry with the indexes because for loop directly takes the elements of the corresponding list. Now let us understand this. For, it is the command. Lang is the variable name I am using to refer to one element at a time. Okay, and which points to elements of this sequence. So the sequence name is language. Okay, so this is the sequence which is named as language. Okay, now in this sequence, I want to get all the elements out of it by processing one element at a time with that variable name mentioned. What is the variable name mentioned here? Lang. So lang is the variable name that is used in this for loop. So initially lang points to the first element and the for loop tests whether it processed the last element or not. No. So this is the first element. So it comes inside and prints this message. What is that message? Current language is lang. What is lang pointing to at this moment? It is pointing to Python. Therefore, the first message is current language is Python. It displays the first message. Okay. Then control goes and lang moves to the next element. Okay. Lang moves to the next element. So now it is pointing to Java. Okay. Again, it tests the condition whether all the elements are processed or not. No, it is not processed. So it prints the message. Current language is lang. This time lang is pointing to Java. Okay. Therefore, the second message that we get from the loop is current language is Java because lang is pointing to the second element of the list. Again, it goes back and lang moves forward. Okay. Still that last element is not processed. Therefore, it goes inside the loop. Okay. This time it prints the message current language is lang. Lang is pointing to Ruby. So it prints current language is Ruby now. Okay. Now, when it goes back, the condition is lang processed the last element. So it goes out of the bounds of the corresponding list. So there is nothing to point because it reached the end of list. Whenever it reaches the end of list, the loop stops. For loop stops. Therefore, the output that we are going to get out of this loop is three messages. Current language is Python, current language is Java, current language is Ruby. Okay, so that is how the for loop works. So this is the simplest form of the for loop, but there are several ways of using this for loop. I will explain all those ways now. But before that, you need to understand a special function that will be used along with this for loop. Okay, so let me explain that special function first. Then we will move on to the for loop later. Okay, so for loop using range function. So you should understand how this range function works, right? Then only you will understand the for loop with range function later. So let us start with the range function in detail first. Then I will come back to this particular slide to explain this for loop that is combined with the range function. Okay, let us move on to the next slide. I'll come back to that particular topic for loop again. But before that, you need to understand the range function first. Okay. So range function, the basic purpose of range function is it will produce a sequence of numbers. Okay, it will produce a sequence of numbers. Given some n value, it will produce the values from 0 to n minus 1 if the starting value is not mentioned. Okay, you need to understand this behavior of range function very clearly. Let me show the working of this range function with our IDLE. Okay. So let us see how it works now. Right. Suppose I just want to test a range of 5. See what it is printing. It is equal to writing it as a range of 0, 5. Okay. So if you want to see the values of the range of 0 to 0, 5 or range of 5, let me show the print function now. Okay, let us create it in the form of a list to see the values. It produces the values from 0 to 5 excluding 5. That is what you need to understand. So list of range of 5. See what it is producing. Because I mentioned it as range of 5 here, and also I concatenated with the list of, I typecasted with the list of, it is producing a list with the values 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, which means that it produces values starting with 0 index and ending with the n minus 1. If you mention 5 here, it produces 5 minus 1. The last value is going to be 5 minus 1, and all the values are incremented by 1 in sequence. Okay, so for example, I will change the value of 5 there to some other value. Let me take it as 8. It is producing 0 to 7. Okay, it always begins with 0, ends with n minus 1 based on the value you specify. Okay, now let us see some variants of this range function. If you mention only the n value, the last value, the list begins from 0. But you can choose the starting value also. For example, if you want to produce the values from 2 to 8, then you should give a range of 2, 9. It will produce 2 to 8. So it begins with 2 now, because the starting value is also given. And because you mentioned the ending value as 9, it takes one value less than that last value you mentioned. Okay, so range of 2, 9 will produce 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, and observe that every element is produced with a difference of 1. That means it is incremented by 1 to produce the sequence. We can change that incrementation also. Okay, for example, I would like to produce the values between 2 to 20. Okay, but incremented by 2 in the list. That means I want to produce 2 and then 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on like that. See it now. The list is now producing 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, and so on. Now you got 3 parameters into this range function. The first parameter shows the starting value. Okay, this is the starting value of the list you want to produce. Okay, and this is the ending value. So 1 less than this ending value will be produced by the range function, and this is the increment that you want to take in the sequence. Okay, so because you mentioned it as 2 here, every element in the sequence is separated by 2. Okay, if I change it to 3, what will happen? It will produce all the values in the sequence with a separation of 3, that is a difference of 3. Okay, let me take the same example here. I think I did not copy it. So I'm changing it to 3 now, so that you will see the output. See the difference between values in the sequence. It is differentiated by 3 now. Okay, right. And the positive values as the third parameter increments the values in the sequence. Of course, you can give the negative values also. Okay, for example, I would like to give 20, comma 2, comma minus 2 this time. So what does this mean? The range has to start at 20, okay, and repeat till 2, differentiated by minus 2. Can you guess the values? It begins with 20 and then produces sequence by taking minus 2 for the next value in the sequence. So you can observe it, see here, 20, 18, 16, 14, 12, 10, 8, 6, 4, and the next number is 2 actually, but you mentioned the range end here as 2. It should not be part of your sequence. Okay, so it stops before that last element you mentioned here. So it stops at 4. Okay, so you need to be very careful while writing this range function, because sometimes it may not produce a list at all. For example, if I write like this, look at this range function now. What it is saying: start the index at 2. Is the starting value of the range is 2, ending value of the range is 20, differentiated by minus 2. What it should produce? Starting at 2, what it will produce? It will produce an empty list, because it cannot go back. There are no elements between 2 and 20, differentiated by minus 2. Okay, so it will not produce any values. Therefore, you need to be very careful while choosing that range function. Okay, now with this knowledge, let me go back to our slide. Now tell me, what will be the value of these functions? Okay, now tell me the values of these functions. What will be the values produced by this list of range of 10? It is from 0 to 9. Yes, yes, it is 0 to 9. What about this list of range of 2 to 7? It will produce 2 to 1 less than that 7, that is 2 to 6, incremented by 1, because you did not mention the amount of increment here. The third parameter always specifies the amount of increment. So it is mentioned here as 2. So the range of values produced here is starts with 2, separated by 2. Therefore, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. The next number has to be 12, but you mentioned it as 12 here. It will be excluded from the list. So it produces this 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. What about this list of range of 12, comma 2, comma minus 2? It will produce 12 minus 2 will give you 10, and then 8, then 6, then 4, and the next number has to be 2, but the second parameter is 2. You should exclude that 2. So this is how it produces the values. What about this list of range of 12, comma 2? It will produce an empty list. Why? You mentioned it, the starting value as 12, and then the ending value as 2, but the third parameter is not given. Therefore, third parameter is assumed as plus 1. You cannot go to 2 from 12 by incrementing the values from 12. 12 is incremented means that it will produce 13 only, but you cannot go back to 12. Therefore, this list is going to be empty. You can test it with your IDLE. And then here also, starting from 2, by using this decrementation minus 2, you cannot reach 12 anywhere. Okay, therefore this will also produce an empty list. Okay, an empty list. And what about this? Starting from 12, incrementing by 2, you never reach this value 2. Therefore, this will also produce an empty list. Why? Because starting from 12, if you increment it by 2, it produces 14 and then 16 and then 18. It is deviating from the last value you mentioned here. Therefore, it produces an empty list. Right? So I hope you understood it now, how the range function works. Okay, range simply produces a range of values. Because I used a list here, it produces a list of values. Okay, otherwise it is simply going to be a sequence, right? Now let us use this range function as part of our for loop. I'm going back to the previous slide to understand the loops, for loops with the range function. Okay, now look at this. Again, this is a list created here with 3 values in it: Python, Java, and Ruby. Now, for lang in range of len of language. So what is this len of language? It returns 3. Why? How many elements are there in language? 3 elements: Python, Java, Ruby. So this len of language is 3, and now it means that range of 3. So what is produced by range of 3? You all know. What is produced by range of 3 now? It produces 0, 1, and 2, right? This will produce index 0, 1, and 2. Okay, so now lang in range of 3, it is the meaning. So now lang will point to this values, indexes at a time. In first iteration, lang will point to 0. Okay, then you are printing, print current language is language of lang. What is lang? It is 0 in the first iteration. So language of 0 means that Python. So current language is Python. So this is another way of printing the elements of a sequence now. Okay, current language is Python. We are using the indexes now in this case, right? And in the second iteration, the lang points to the next index, that is 1. Okay, in such case, it produces language of 1. Current language is language of 1. What is language of 1? It is Java. It prints current language is Java. Okay, then in the next iteration, lang moves to the next index, that is 2. Okay, in such case, it produces language of 2. What is language of 2? It is Ruby. Okay, language of 0, language of 1, language of 2, according to the indexes in the list, right? So it displays this current language is Ruby. Okay, so the message is same, the output is same, except that we used another way of accessing the elements of a list. Okay, we used the range function as part of our for loop here, right? Okay, even if you do not understand it at this level, don't mind, it's okay, because we have the list concepts, the data structures concept. I think it is in second unit or third unit. I will explain more clearly when you understand how the list works. Okay, so as of now, because you don't know about how the lists are created and how they work, of course, there may be a little confusion, but I have given a simple example to understand it clearly. Okay, even if you do not understand, just practice these examples using your IDLE. Then I will anyhow again explain this part in third unit. Okay, right. So this is the second variant of for loop, which uses range function. And the next topic is when you want to solve some complex problems, you may require a nesting of loops. As I told you earlier, whenever you see this word nested, okay, it always means that one inside another. Nested means that one inside another. Because we are saying nested loops, it means we are going to keep one loop inside another loop. Okay, so whenever you write one loop another inside another loop, you call it as a nested loop. This nestedness may be a for loop inside another for loop, a while loop inside while loop, a for loop inside another while loop, or maybe a while loop inside for loop. It does not matter how you nest it. Okay, all of them are valid nestings. Okay, so based on the application requirement, you can combine the loops into nested loops. Okay, now let us have a look at this first one, for variable in sequence. This is called outer loop. Okay, this is called outer loop. Outer loop. And the loop inside this loop is called as inner loop. Inner loops gets executed for every value of the outer loop. Okay, that means, for example, if the outer loop repeats 5 times, for each of that iteration, this will be repeated. For loop gets inner for loop gets executed for each of these iterations of the outer loop. Okay, for example, if outer loop iterates 5 times and inner loop iterates 4 times, then the total number of iterations is going to be 20 iterations. How? For the first iteration, this loop iterates 4 times. For the second iteration, this loop iterates 4 times, and so on. 5 times, this loop is iterating 4 times. Overall, the inner loop is executed 20 times when you finish the nested loop. Okay, the working is same. While expression, again while expression, this is called as outer loop and this is called as inner loop. It also works in similar manner. Until and unless this expression becomes false, inner loop is executed. Okay, for example, if this expression is true for 5 times and this expression is true for 4 times, again it's going to be the inner loop gets executed for 20 iterations. Okay, because for every iteration of outer loop, this loop has to be repeated for 4 times, right? So this is how it works. Nested loops are already there in your C language also. I hope you already practiced some programs with this nested loops. The concept is same even in Python also. Okay, let us have a look at a simple example here to understand how the for loops works here. So I'm just using 2 for loops for I in range of 1 to 5. So this range of 1 to 5 will produce the values from 1 to 4, that is 1, 2, 3, and 4. These are the values produced by the range function. Okay, so I points to one value at a time produced by this range. Initially, I points to 1. Okay, by taking the first value, it goes inside this inner loop. It comes over here, and here it is testing for j in range of I. What is I value at the beginning? It is 1. Okay, that means if I give only one value here, range of 1, it takes the values from 0 to 0. That means only j value is taken for 0. So j points to 0, only one value at this position. So for I value 1, j value 0, it prints this statement, print of I comma end is equals to a space. Okay, print of I comma end is equals to. That means it prints the corresponding value of I. What is the value of I? It is 1. So 1 gets printed, and at the end, it is using a space. Okay, space is given here. And the loop is terminated. Inner loop is terminated because there is only one value and it is completed. Okay, and because we wrote a print statement after the inner loop, okay, these two statements are executed before it goes back to the outer loop again. Okay, so this print takes the control to the next line, second line. Now it is here, right? Now for the second value of I, that means second value of I is 2 now. I is now 2. Again, it comes inside for j in range of 2 this time, I value is 2. That means it produces 0 and 1. So for j is equal to 0, it prints the I value 2. And for j is equal to 1 also, because 2 values now for j, it prints 2 again. Okay, and then it goes to third line because 2 values are complete. So like that, for the next value of I, 3, it prints 3 threes. Okay, and for the next value of I, that is 4, it prints 4 times. And once this loop is completed for all the values produced by range, the entire loop is completed and the output is seen like this. Okay, so that is how it works. Let us test this program with our IDLE. Just want to show you how it works. I'm taking it to the IDLE. So let us create a new file to run our program. Just save it on desktop. I'm creating this as 2.py. Okay, now it is created as 2.py. Now let us run this program because it is saved. You can see the output here. Okay, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 3, 4, 4, 4, 4. So that is what I explained there about how the nested loops works. For every outer loop value, inner loop value gets executed. Okay, because here the outer loop repeats for 4 times and inner loop depends on the outer loop value, that is I value. Okay, so the total values that is produced is 3, 6, 10. Okay, 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, right? So that is how it works. Yeah, that's all about the loop statements that I wanted to explain today. We covered 2 types of repetition control statements today, and we explained the syntaxes and examples of both the while loop as well as for loop, along with the variants of for loop also. Okay, and we have discussed about the nested loops also, the concept of nesting one loop inside another loop, and I have shown one example to understand it clearly. I have shown it by running the example in IDLE also. Okay, so that is what I wanted to explain. We have completed the control statements or control structures of Python now. In earlier class, we discussed the decision control structures, and in today's class, we discussed the repetition control structures. So it is completed. And in our next class, we are going to discuss about several programs that can be solved using these decision control structures as well as repetition control structures. So the next classes will be focusing on solving the real-time examples from your textbook. Okay, so that's all for today. I will stop it here. Okay, thank you all for your patient listening. I request all of you to practice all these programs with IDLE that I am explaining as part of these repetition control structures, and as well with the previous control structures, that is decision control structures also. I have given a few simple examples. Please practice these simple examples in IDLE by typing it in your own. You will be getting used to that syntaxes of Python first. Okay, so if you practice these small programs, you'll become more familiar with the syntaxes of this Python, and when you start writing a little big programs, then you'll feel comfortable while writing those programs. Okay, so practice it with IDLE. Okay, and we'll focus on more programs in the next class, right? So thank you all. I'll stop it here. See you in the next class.